So we've seen the introduction of the brand new Mizuno driver, the ST-G 220 with movable weights. We've tested it, we've given that a full review, but now I'm going to put it up against the STZ Driver, which is a single fixed weight at the back of the driver. So I'm going to test movability against standard fixed weight on these two drivers. Okay, so we know Mizuno are making some good moves in the driver department. We know the irons are very, very good. The drivers definitely over the last few years are making some movements and eating into some market share. Now, STZ came out, I think it was early 2021, maybe late 2020. There was a Z and an X. The X was the draw bias, the Z was more neutral with fixed weight in the back. Okay, a lot of carbon on there, but a great looking driver. Just recently seen now, coming towards the end of 2021, is the ST-G, which is the adjustability one. So we've got some sliding weights in there which can be moved all around the club face, low spin, a little bit more spin, but again a very, very good and similar looking product there. So I'm going to test these two drivers head to head. I'm going to put the weights on the G driver all the way in the back sections to start off with, so similar setup to what we see in the Z. I want to see what it's like in a similar sort of setup, weight at the back, weights at the back, between these two clubs to start off with, and may just then move a little bit of weight around through the test. So I'm going to start off with the STZ, so fixed weight in the back. We've got a little bit of that carbon in the heel and the toe on the sole, as well as the carbon on the top. Now in the G we lose the carbon on the sole because obviously the tracks are in that position there, so we don't have that carbon, so probably a little bit of a difference there, maybe of that weight in the head. It's a 9.5, set at 9.5, hazardous smoke RDX 6.5, exactly the same shaft as I've got in the G. Okay, so we're going to start off with the Z. Both are playing at 45 inch in length, which is a little bit shorter, but that is Mizuno standard. That was a really good strike, but it's just peeled a tiny bit up that right side. So, as we sort of said, it's a really good sounding golf club. It's a really good looking golf club. We've got a lot of that carbon on there. So, just a little bit of a different view for you today on this particular video. And do comment, let me know on this, you know, whether you see that, what I've just shown you there, and a little bit obviously ball flight as well as my delivery there. You might be interested to see my sort of spin loft, my angle of attack, my sort of dynamic loft that I present, path and face relationship, those sort of things. So, or if you do prefer to see the actual strike on the club face, then obviously do comment it down below. Okay, that was a very similar ball flight to the first one actually, just peeling a little bit up that right. It's not a bad shape, I don't mind that at all, to be honest. So obviously we've got this fixed weight in the furthest back section, so what that's obviously going to be doing there is pulling that weight further back. It's going to increase that MOI should I say, which is obviously forgiveness in the driver head, increase a little bit of launch, a little bit of spin, but obviously it's a fixed head, isn't it, in terms of that weight, so we can't move that CG around, whether it's from heel to toe, front to back, so we are in a more limited driver. But obviously if this works for you and you know you don't need to be changing that weight, then great, that's absolutely fine, isn't it? You know, we don't need to be tinkering around this. The Z is a very good option. Really good feel to that. I like that flight. So this is, as I say, 9.5, but it does have that adjustability in the neck sleeve, so we can obviously move that loft up and down by up to 2 degrees, change a little bit of lie angle as well. Okay, and that was a little bit of a poor strike. I mean, it's gone straight. It's probably going to lose a little bit of distance there. That was a bit of a low heel sort of connection. Yeah, just dropping off a little bit of distance. That was a better shot. Nice flight, very neutral. Okay, so there's some shots hit with the STZ. So for me, really good driver. Did see that in the review video. Looks super down by the golf ball. 460cc head. We do see that carbon there, that light sort of grey carbon effect, which looks quite stunning in my eyes. All sort of glassed out, black face, sort of darker black front section. Okay, let's move into the new ST-G 220. Okay, ST-G 220, so brand new driver from Mizuno. Adjustability is the big talking point here, as we tend to see with their G drivers, but that additional backtrack now, which is a bit of a, I think could be a bit of a game changer for them in terms of just dialing to that golfer. So I'm going to set this up, as I mentioned before, with the 2 heavyweights. Now these can be positioned anywhere around this sort of head in these tracks. They come out, they can be moved all in the toe, all in the heel, all in the back, forward, back, one heel, one toe, you know, they can be anywhere. So I'm positioning these both in the back, so I'm setting it up as similar to the Z as I can. I'm just interested to see how the G and the Z, you know, with adjustability here, obviously we haven't got the carbon on the soles, we've got some tracks, so some different mass in different places in these heads, isn't there, because of the tracks or without the tracks and the carbon. Now, looking down by that golf ball, let's get these two side by side, and I think, again, they're both a very similar look. Both got exactly that carbon effect, black front section, black face, Runbird logo, exactly the same. So you put them in down there, the colouring is and the shaping of the head is very, very similar. There is a slight more compact look to the G, okay, which I think is a good thing, because probably the G is maybe edged more to that, maybe sort of lower handicap, maybe sort of into early sort of teens maybe. The Golf who probably has a little bit more speed, probably typically likes to look at a slightly more compact head. Now, I know that's, everybody's different, you know, you can get a high handicapper would sit that down and say, I love the smaller head, I prefer it. So that is always a personal choice, isn't it? So yeah, a little bit more compact, both 460cc, but just a little bit more compact from that the front to the back of the driver in comparison to that Z. Does look great down by that golf ball, I must admit. So as I say, same shaft, this is a 9 degree. Okay, so this is 9 degree head, that's a 9.5, so it's just a half a degree difference. Oh, that's a good opener. Straight away there's a little different sound on that. That to me sounds a little bit more solid in the G in relation to that Z. That's a nice opening shot, quite a nice straight one there. Yeah, just a little bit more of a solid sound, a little bit more, not quite as loud. Is probably the best way to sort of say that. Again, decent-ish strike, just moving a tiny bit up the right hand side. I think definitely that acoustic just a little bit different there compared to that Z. That's a cracker. That's a really good, strong ball flight. Very straight as well, that one. Again, good. Definitely a different sound there. I do much prefer the sound of the G, and obviously that's a personal choice, isn't it? So talk a little bit about adjustability. You know, you could sort of say, right, okay, you go for a fit-in, you know, you sort of want that weight in that back, that sort of dials in. Do you then need to go into something like a G to start playing around? You know, if you're a rack, a really neutral ball flight, you know, you sort of get dialed in with that fixed weight there. You don't really need a help of maybe draw or fade biased. Got the spin in the right area, shaft's dialed in. You know, do you need to change? Possibly not. You know, and obviously that's where the Z would be a very, very good option. Maybe for the Golf who wants that a little bit of adjustability, might have the spin in a certain area where they need to try and shift that as much as they can. Then obviously that's where the advantages of that fine tuning of the weights are in and around the head, just to alter that launch and that spin. And don't get me wrong, this isn't going to solve all problems, is it? This is very much sort of just dialing in and getting a little bit more precise. You know, we've definitely got to get the loft in there first, you know, the right sort of shaft dialed in there for that particular golfer, and then you're going to start fine tuning a little bit with the weights, just subtleties of that flight, that low point, maybe that difference of just taking a certain side of the golf course out for that particular player and their tendencies. So that's where the advantages then of adjustability is actually going to play its part. Again, just leaked a tiny bit on that right hand side, but again, strike felt pretty good. Sound really good. Okay, so let's just go and compare those two numbers with both of those drivers, two different models, but both with the weights in the back section. Let's just test them out, see if there's any differences. Okay, so look at the dispersion rings to start off with. Obviously, we've seen a little bit of a right bias there with both those clubs. A couple tiny bit left, but not by much. But obviously, a couple of right misses there with both models, to be fair. Obviously, that's a little bit more me than the driver. As I say, maybe just dialing that in, we've got those options of going a little bit more upright in the lie there would be quite a good option, possibly just to try and limit that right miss. So that's where more there's a little bit of that adjustability in both those models there with lie angle, which can also affect a little bit of that sort of left to the right sort of shot pattern. Also, we got in the G the advantage of having the weights as well, maybe a couple of those weights in the heel there, just allowing that sort of toe to catch and square a little bit more, reducing that maybe potential of the right shot. Again, you've got two options to go down, and this is what you'll be hopefully doing a little bit with your fitter. And then we look at the sort of numbers there between those two, so you can see club head speed as average, you know, just a tiny bit quicker with the G, only by 1 mile an hour. Ball speed a little bit hotter off the club face there, 160.2, 157.7. So we did sort of see that what the information Mizuno was providing there, we've done a little bit more of that cortex face in the G, so a little bit more hotter spots in a way, again trying to increase that that ball speed, which sort of seems to do it. Obviously we've got a little bit of club head speed, which will obviously translate into a little bit more ball speed. Launch exactly the same. You can see the spin there just a little bit lower with the 220 in comparison to that STZ. So even though we've got those weights back, it's still quite a low spin driver in my eyes there. But you know, again, we've got loft to play around with, so you could start adding a little bit more loft there. It just helps to increase that little bit of spin, keep that ball in there that a little bit longer. Okay, so there we go. There's the STZ against the ST-G 220 driver. Post comments down below. Let me know your thoughts between those two. Would you feel like you need that little bit of help of adjustability to sort of dial in a certain shot? Or are you quite happy sort of just putting a sort of non-busy heading away? You know, so I know some sort of golfers always say to me, you know, I don't want all that adjustability. It confuses me, I'll end up sort of tinkering around. You shouldn't really be doing that. You know, ideally in the process you go and get fit. The fitter would sort of dial you into a certain spec, and really from there you're not going to be tinkering too much unless you're playing a certain course where you might just want to drop the launch, the spin. You just change the weights there, but you don't really want to be tinkering around with that too much in my eyes. So two good drivers for me, two very sort of different drivers, but providing similar sorts of numbers there. But I say maybe different advantages depending on your personal needs in terms of what you can do with adjustability to help your shot shape. Post comments down below, let me know your thoughts. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, do hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you can, very much appreciate it, and hopefully catch up with you all very soon.